You ever wonder if the worst part of yourself were to be revealed to everyone around you, would they still love you? Would they still care about you? Would they still be able to do what needs to be done for you despite everything that's going on around you and despite the terrible things that have been let out? It's an interesting thought process as we draw closer and closer to the conclusion of God Valley and closer to the start of Marshall D. Teach's backstory. We're starting to realize that the reason he probably has the name Marshall was to hide his identity, but I'm getting a little too deep into that. I got my thoughts at the end of the chapter, so let's talk about the beginning of the chapter first. Hello, Internet. I am the hero of Julios once again with another One Piece chapter summary. This week's chapter is chapter 1164, Davy Blood. The artwork this week continues on with Oda taking requests. We're probably going to get this till the end of the year, give or take. This time it is Perona chasing after a white rabbit. This white rabbit is dressed in a very similar fashion to Mihawk, a very cavalier look to him. For those of you One Piece fans who are a little more keen-eyed and a little more obsessed, like me, you'll notice that this is also Randolph of the Big Mom Pirates. He is one of the homies. He is an actual rabbit with the soul of a person, or at least the fragment of a soul, placed inside of him to give him just enough sentience to talk and move and everything a mink can do, except he is just an actual rabbit. But enough about rabbits, let's talk about demons. As Eam is holding rocks, he's got the big noodly stabs going through him, and everyone else is kind of looking on in awe. Not like, oh, this is amazing awe, more like, hey, our attacks didn't really do anything to this guy. In the last chapter, we saw that these big attacks, we had the Galaxy Impact, Divine Departure, just Dragon Blast. These were all amazing attacks used by some of the most powerful individuals, and the burst of Conqueror's Haki that came from that attack, because remember, everyone involved in that attack is a Conqueror's Haki user. The burst came across the entire island, rippling effects, and it did nothing. It probably didn't do nothing per se, but it slowed Eam's regeneration as he's still coming to. His body is still reforming. But to someone who doesn't know what they're up against, it would look like their attacks did nothing. This is bad. But we do actually see that Rox is managing to resist, which is pretty impressive considering how quickly we've seen Domi Reversi work in the past. Though I guess technically it's seeing it work in the future because we saw it on Dory and Broggy where it just, whoop, instantly swapped them. But maybe that's because Eam's improved over the last 40 years of how to do that. Because if I was Eam and my most powerful ability didn't work, I would spend some time practicing that. Regardless, Eam is having a little chat with Rox while he's waiting for the power to take effect. And Rox tells him, hey, you really shouldn't underestimate humanity. After all, Davy D. Jones was the king of the world. To which Eam is very upset by this. Eam's like, oh, whoa, hang on. He was never, ever king of the world. It is an attitude like that is the reason that I need to get rid of you guys, because the Davy clan seems to have this thing in their brain where like the real history matters and I wasn't always king, so shut up. Davy was never king, and once I get rid of you and your kid and your wife, no one will ever hear that statement ever again. The more I hear Eam talk, the more he comes off as a stammering, terrified child who just learned that playtime is almost over. But as he's still holding Xebec in the air, Rox gives this great speech of the will of Davy D. Jones can still pass on. As long as someone's around to inherit it, that promise still has a chance of being kept. Although, I gotta know, because I'm a curious guy, who are you actually more afraid of? Davy D. Jones? Or Joy Boy? And Eam does not like hearing either of those names, so obviously he starts freaking out more. But a more important thing to keep in mind, those of you who are, got your big cork boards with the red strings on them, this pretty much confirms that the theory of the D standing for Davy is gone. Davy is a last name. Joy Boy is clearly a different person than Davy Jones. So whatever happened 800 years ago is not related to one single person against Eam, but instead a group of people. I wouldn't be shocked if maybe the 19 kings that formed the world government, well, technically 20, but one went home, maybe they didn't even know who the real bad guy was. Maybe Eam was just a manipulator from the start. We don't know. Until we get the Joy Boy flashback, we won't know. But Eam chooses to ignore this question. He doesn't want to talk about Davy Jones. He does not want to talk about Joy Boy. He wants to talk about his surefire plan to make sure that neither of those scary people, who definitely weren't king of the world, will never mess with him again. Because this time, he's finally going to get his hands on those pesky giants. Because they are, currently, conflicted, worried, and seeking peace. Harold is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for a man with a very long lifetime to finally have the puppet king that he needs to take over the giants. And with that, Eam has stalled with a filibuster enough. He throws Rox to the ground, and Rox even says in his own thought bubble, "I'm disappearing." Which is an interesting word choice. The fact that he's saying he's disappearing almost implies that Domi Reversi is not Domi Reversible. That once you've been in demon form too long, maybe you can't get out. Now obviously this is One Piece, and Oda wouldn't let Dorian Broggy. Then again, in Wano, Oda hasn't really been against letting people go anymore, so I'm hoping Dorian Broggy will be fine, but this does not seem like the case. Unless, of course, Luffy pulls off some kind of miracle and we are able to save them. But as Rox is writhing on the ground, Linlin and Kaido, surprisingly enough, are the first to head over to him. It's, weirdly enough, it's kind of heartwarming to see that Linlin, Kaido, and Newgate, while we've heard the stories of the Rox pirates disbanded and they all hated each other and they never wanted to work together, there is a sense of camaraderie in the core of the crew. Like, Shiki's kind of a jerk. Gonzui apparently is a backstabber. We know Wang Ji is a backstabber because he's the reason he's the reason this whole thing even started. Captain John's kind of a jerk. But it seems Kaido, Linlin, and Newgate legitimately cared, at least to some extent, about their captain. Rox gets up and he rises to his feet. His big bat wings, his fangs, his dark expression. He resisted longer than anyone else we've seen so far. But he is finally a monster. Linlin even notices that he's gotten bigger. Because remember, Rox was just a normal-sized dude. At least as far as One Piece goes. But he tells both of them in his demon voice, whatever, get out of my way. Because Eam issues the command, erase the Davy bloodline. Mind you, Rox, tells Linlin and Kaido, get out of my way, I have to go take out that bloodline. The two of them have no clue what this is about. So the two of them just think, oh, Rox, clearly something's wrong. They don't even have enough time to get an explanation as he grabs Kaido by the snout and throws him into a mountain. Linlin tries to fight back in retaliation, obviously trying to protect Kaido, only to be knocked away herself. And as he is heading there, Newgate, reading the situation, gets his Quake power ready and clashes with Rox in an impact so strong it knocks over one of the two giant pillars of God Valley. If something happens and causes the other pillar of God Valley to fall over, I might be more inclined to believe the Thriller Bark theory. For those of you who need a refresher, The Thriller Bark theory right now is that somehow, some way, Gecko Moria obtained God Valley as an island, or the remnant of it, because the theory right now is that Eam is going to destroy it with the Pluton. But if there's enough fragment left, or if the island itself is intact, maybe Moria does take it, turn it into a ship, and is the reason he's sailing across the ocean with it. Not to mention, that would be how he got Gansui and Captain John's bodies, because I don't know if those guys survive this. Captain John allegedly should, because we know Buggy is searching his treasure, and he couldn't have a legendary treasure if he hadn't stolen it from God Valley. But that doesn't mean Gansui survives God Valley. So how would Moria have gotten his corpse from it? Whatever the reason, rocks in Newgate cause way more chaos because this giant mountain, a literal mountain, is falling over. People are running to get out of the way. Ivankov and Ginny are telling Kuma, okay, we've saved enough people, we can get out of here. And Kuma looks into the woods and he says, wait, I see one more person. Let me save one more person. And my guess is, knowing Kuma, Ginny and Ivankov probably didn't get a say in this, because they were probably like, no, Kuma, we have to go now. And Kuma was probably like, it's for your own good, guys. Okay, time to go save one more person, then I leave, I swear. And he goes. We then cut to Eris. She's booking it. She's getting away from whatever that is. She's holding her baby with her dear life, only for Rox to catch up to her. And she turns back to him and says, I'm so sorry, Teach. You had to stay back there and fight because we couldn't fight alongside you. I know you didn't want to fight him this early. Implying that Rox, A, did plan on fighting Eam, because we know, he said in the butterfly room, I'm coming back someday. But 2, Eris knows his plan. Eris knows his goals. I'll get to that at the end of the chapter. Unfortunately, yeah, it was too soon, and Eam won, effectively. Rox takes up his big old sword with his pandemonium attack as he's gonna go take out Eris and his son. I'm sure the Rox inside is crying his eyes out as he's watching his own body do this against his will. But, and stay with me here, the dominoes of fate all come together. For those of you who say Garp is evil, I'm going to take the domino one further back to tie this to Garp. Garp, legendary Marine, amazing Vice Admiral, super guy, about to be hero of the Marines after this. He enlisted his son Dragon, or at least I assume he kind of just made Dragon do it. He was very gung-ho on making Luffy become a Marine, so I could see him making Dragon do this. Dragon became a Marine. Dragon ended up on God Valley. Dragon saved Kuma. Kuma gets to Eris and Teach and just... And he looks up and he sees the big sword of rocks coming towards him and... Well, I've saved enough people. So Rox's attack ends up not destroying anything. Destroys a lot of the landscape, but nobody important, nothing important. And with that, Eam looks over in that direction and is just like, Okay, well, Davy, because remember, he calls him Davy. Davy, now that you've destroyed your wife and child, I want you to take out everything else on this island. Just no witnesses, no survivors. That means the Marines, the pirates, the slaves, that wolf over there, I don't know, everything, just everything. And Xebec is about to obey this until a voice calls out. As Roger and Garp, they are basically telling their ships to head out. Garp tells his men, get going, I'll figure out a way to get to you guys. Roger is effectively saying the same thing to his crew as they both tell their respective leaders, don't do anything reckless. They're both going to do something reckless. Roger walks over, Garp's nearby, and Roger just goes, hey, Rox, as he yells out with this massive burst of hockey, which, interestingly enough, summons him. He actually flies over. Eam looks over and sees Rox going to this call and is just kind of like, Davy? Hey, I told you to go. Am I slipping? I need to spend 40 years practicing this ability. But with that, Davy Xebec lands in front of Garp and Roger. He lands in front of them, and through the voice of all things, because we see Roger cover his ears trying to figure out what he's hearing, he tells them, Garp, Roger, please, kill me. Now, the way the little, Garp has a little speech bubble that's just question marks, I don't know if that means Garp has the voice of all things, or if he's just why is Roger covering his ears? We also don't know if Dragon has the voice of all things. Is this a hereditary thing that Luffy can do? We never really got to explore Ace's ability to do it, unless that's in the Ace novel. I've only read the first Ace novel. Still need to do a video on that. I've only ever read the first Ace novel, so I don't know if maybe the second novel shows him doing it because Roger could do it. Is it hereditary? Is it just something very, very rare people can do? Who knows? But whatever the reason, Garp knows what Rox wants. And sadly, that is where our chapter ends. So, personally, we all kind of knew it was going to be one of two ways, the Domi Reversi. Most people agreed it was going to be Rox gets Domi Reversi'd, Garp and Roger have to put him down. Newgate is still here on the island. Linlin and Kaido are not, down for the count. They were just slapped. They were tricked. They were caught blindsided. To anyone who says, oh man, wow, Kaido is so weak compared to Rox, did you guys miss any slobby where Kaku and Califa were both just kind of guessing with their devil fruits? Granted, Califa was way more adept with her fruit than Kaku was at first. But does anyone remember Pasta Machine? Where Kaku was just like, Kaido just learned he was a dragon 20 minutes after eating this fruit. Not even. So, yeah, Kaido was caught off guard. Linlin isn't at her prime yet. The two of them weren't ready for their captain to just blindside them with attacks. But they're not down and out, so they're probably going to get back up. We might see them fight some Holy Knights. I think the fight between Garling and Newgate is going to happen. But this seems to be accurate to Sengoku's story, that Rox was defeated by Garp and Roger. Even if the truth behind the fight is kind of skewed by the government. The more important question on my mind is Eris. Usually in a One Piece flashback, if you are a mother and it is a One Piece, if those borders are black on the panels, you're gone. There's no happy ending for you. I'm still super worried about Ida, because I absolutely love her, but she's a mom in a One Piece flashback. I don't know what else to tell you. Eris, I don't see you grabbing Teach by the ear 40 years later, so yeah, that's the real question. She's not wounded either, so it's not like Kuma just, and the two of them land somewhere and that's when she's like, oh, I'm dying. No, she's fine, healthy actually. Ready to jump into the ocean, actually. She even flat out said that while running from Rox. She was like, we don't have a choice, Teach. We're going to jump into the ocean. We'll swim if we have to. We'll figure out a way to survive. And then Kuma, saved them. But she's alive. A surprisingly long time for a mom in a One Piece flashback. Does she know Xebec's entire plan? Because if Eris knows Xebec's entire plan, then Teach knows Xebec's entire plan. And if Teach knows Xebec's entire plan, then Teach knows which devil fruits are needed. And I think when the God Valley fight is over and whatever happens to erase God Valley, because like Leluzia, it'll probably never have existed, whatever happens after that, we will get one last chapter before going back to Loki's flashback. And we will learn what two fruits Xebec is looking for, because Eris will sit her son down and say, listen, Teach, you are the last of the Davy clan. I'm just married in. You're the one with Davy blood. You need to get these two devil fruits, because those are the fruits needed to stop Emu. But hey, who knows? That's just my speculation. So let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear what you think Eris is going to tell Teach. Do you think Teach in the modern day knows all of Xebec's plan? Do you think he only kind of understands it because maybe his mom didn't get to explain everything? Xebec seems way better a person than Teach. Though Teach is a very likable villain, he's still a villain. And Xebec, Davy, whatever you want to call him, wasn't. He was just a reckless doofus of a guy who wanted to stop the ultimate evil and also take over the world. But now that we know Davy D. Jones was also the king of the world, I don't know if maybe Xebec was just like, this is a birthright thing? Whatever, let me know in the comments below what you think the true plan of Xebec is. I think it involves two certain devil fruits. Maybe I'll talk about it in a future chapter summary. But regardless, thank you for watching as always, and I will see you in the next video. This is the Hero of Julios, Xing out.